Welcome to Winning Paths, your gateway into the enthralling realm of archery. Dive deep into its theories, unravel its rich history, and bask in a wealth of experiences shared by us and our distinguished guests. This podcast is a treasure trove of all things archery, brought to life through engaging dialogues and insightful monologues. Proudly produced by the Irish Field Archery Monthly, Ireland's premier non-profit archery community magazine, our existence is a testament to the unwavering support and dedication of our listeners. If our content resonates with you, we warmly invite you to bolster our mission through a direct donation to our dedicated account. Find the link in our description. Our episodes are the culmination of thoughtful analysis, extensive research, academic endeavors, and the publication of articles and books on archery, both in Ireland and internationally. The core of our content is original, crafted from our intellectual endeavors, while any borrowed insights are duly credited, showcasing the cited authors and outlining our research methodology. Our commitment to you is unwavering, to deliver compelling, original content bi-weekly, free of charge, enriching your knowledge and passion for archery. Sure, and isn't it the lot of us now and then to be just a tad too enamored with ourselves? Take Ullr, for instance, the Norse god of archery. Not content with being a mere mortal with a bow, he had to go and elevate himself to divine status, as if hitting a bullseye warranted a place in the celestial pantheon. In the peculiar mosaic of Norse mythology, Ullr stands out not like a sore thumb, but more aptly like a particularly sharp arrowhead. He's not as widely celebrated as the mighty Thor or the cunning Loki, but his tale is as riddled with quirks and divine misadventures as the best of them. So, pull up a chair, fetch yourself a biscuit, and let's delve into the life and times of Ullr, the god of archery, winter, and, somewhat bizarrely, shields. Ullr's parentage is as murky as the bottom of a Viking ale barrel. He's the son of Sif, Thor's golden-haired wife, which makes him Thor's stepson. His father, however, is the enigmatic and often overlooked Egil, a figure whose mythological contributions are scant but intriguing. Ullr, it seems, inherited the best of both worlds, his mother's divine connection and his father's mortal resilience. Imagine young Ullr growing up in the shadow of his stepfather Thor, who was always off saving the world or getting into drunken brawls with giants. It's no wonder Ullr sought solace in the solitary, precise art of archery. While Thor was smashing things with his hammer, Ullr was learning the art of the bow, finding peace in the stillness of the winter woods and the satisfying thrum of a well-released arrow. Ullr's prowess with the bow was unmatched. He could hit a moving target from miles away, a skill that would make even the most skilled mortal archer green with envy. But in typical Norse fashion, this wasn't enough. Ullr didn't just want to be good, he wanted to be a god. And in a world where gods could be born from the blood of giants or the bones of mythical cows, who could blame him for aiming high? His skill with the bow earned him a place among the Aesir, the principal gods of Norse mythology. But let's not kid ourselves. Ullr's ascension wasn't just about his archery. It was also about his cunning. He was known to be a formidable warrior on skis, sliding silently through the snow, bow in hand, as if the very elements themselves were his allies. If Thor was the hammer, blunt and direct, Ullr was the arrow, precise, silent, and deadly. In the harsh, frozen landscapes of the Norse world, survival was an art form, and Ullr was its master. Not only was he a skilled archer, but he also had a peculiar affinity for shields. According to some myths, Ullr could use a shield as a sled, gliding over the snow with ease. Picture this: a god zooming down a mountain on a shield, bow slung over his shoulder, with the grace of a swan but the speed of a thunderbolt. It's almost comical, and yet entirely fitting for a god whose existence straddled the line between the mundane and the miraculous. One might wonder, why the shields? Perhaps Ullr, ever the practical deity, recognized that in a world teeming with hostile giants and unforgiving winters, versatility was key. Shields weren't just for defense, they were a means of transportation, a makeshift sled for those long Nordic winters. Ullr's ingenuity, his ability to adapt and innovate, made him a god not just of archery, but of survival itself. In addition to his archery and shield-sledding prowess, Ullr was also revered as a winter god. His name was invoked during the coldest months, when the nights were long and the threat of starvation loomed large. It was said that Ullr could provide protection and sustenance during these harsh times. Hunters would pray to him for good fortune, hoping to bring back enough game to sustain their families. But let's be honest, being a winter god in Norse mythology is a bit like being the manager of an ice cream shop in Antarctica. It's a niche role, and while it has its perks, it's hardly the glamorous gig one might imagine. Sure, Ullr had his followers, but his domain was one of hardship and survival, not glory and conquest. Ullr's role among the Aesir was somewhat ambiguous. He wasn't one of the major gods, like Odin or Thor, but he wasn't a minor player either. He existed in that grey area, respected for his skills and his cunning, but never quite achieving the same level of fame or reverence. Perhaps it was his very pragmatism, his focus on survival and skill, that kept him from rising to greater heights. In a pantheon filled with gods of war, poetry, and magic, a god of archery and winter seems almost quaint by comparison. And yet, there's something profoundly relatable about Ullr. He's the underdog, the practical one, the god who gets things done without the fanfare. While Odin was off pondering the mysteries of the universe and Thor was smashing giants, Ullr was quietly ensuring that the fires were lit and the food was stored. He was the god you wanted by your side in a crisis, the one who wouldn't just talk about solutions, but would actually implement them. It's worth noting the irony and cynicism that underpins Ullr's existence. Here's a god whose very identity is tied to skills that, in the grand scheme of things, seem almost mundane. Archery, skiing, shield sledding, these are not the grand, heroic feats of legend. They are practical, necessary skills for survival in a harsh world. Ullr's divinity is rooted not in grandiose myth, but in the everyday struggles of life. And yet, there's a certain nobility in this. Ullr's pragmatism, his focus on the practicalities of survival, makes him one of the most relatable and, dare I say, human of the Norse gods. In a pantheon filled with gods who embody abstract concepts and grand ideals, Ullr stands out as a god of the here and now, a deity who understands the importance of the everyday. Today, Ullr's legacy endures, particularly among skiers and winter sports enthusiasts. In fact, there are festivals dedicated to him, where people celebrate his spirit with skiing, archery, and all manner of winter revelry. It's a fitting tribute to a god who embodied the very essence of winter survival and the joy of the hunt. But one can't help but chuckle at the thought of Ullr's modern worshippers. Picture it, a group of skiers, decked out in the latest gear, raising a toast to Ullr as they prepare to hit the slopes. It's a far cry from the harsh, unforgiving winters of the Norse world, but the spirit of Ullr lives on in their laughter and their love of the cold. In the end, what makes Ullr's story so compelling is its humanity. Ullr is a god who understands the struggles of the everyday, the importance of practical skills, and the value of adaptability. He's a reminder that even in the world of gods and myths, there's a place for the practical, the pragmatic, and the down-to-earth. So, the next time you find yourself faced with a challenge, big or small, think of Ullr. Channel his spirit of resilience and adaptability, and remember that sometimes it's the practical skills and the everyday victories that make all the difference. And if you happen to have a shield handy, well, you never know when it might come in handy. Beware the wisdom woven into Norse mythology. Ullr, a thread of practicality and pragmatism, reminds us that even gods must grapple with the everyday realities of life. In a cosmos as unpredictable as the Norse world, that's a comforting thought indeed. Now, speaking of practical skills and the everyday realities of life, let us take a detour to modern-day Mayo, where our very own Bernard McAvoy, a carpenter and sculptor, found himself entangled in a tale of passion, betrayal, and revenge that could rival any Norse saga. Bernard McAvoy, a man of humble beginnings, had always been known for his craftsmanship. His hands could shape wood into the most intricate designs, and his sculptures were the talk of the town. But as talented as he was with wood, Bernard had always found himself a bit lacking in the department of romance. That is, until he met Fionnuala Dunn, an eccentric artist from Roscommon. Fionnuala was everything Bernard was not, bold, daring, and utterly unpredictable. Her art was a chaotic splash of colors and emotions, much like her personality. Bernard was smitten from the moment he laid eyes on her, and it wasn't long before they became inseparable, their artistic souls finding a peculiar harmony in their differences. One day, as Bernard was working on a new sculpture, he found something that would change his life forever. Buried in the heart of an old oak log was a golden ring, adorned with intricate designs that seemed almost otherworldly. Bernard, ever the romantic, decided that this ring would be the perfect symbol of his love for Fionnuala. But, as fate would have it, this ring was no ordinary trinket. It was the very same ring that had once belonged to Siagal O'Broghain from Kildangan, who had lost it in a rather bizarre encounter with a cat named Queen Victoria. Siagal had been searching for this ring ever since, convinced that it held the key to his happiness. Bernard presented the ring to Fionnuala with all the pomp and ceremony he could muster. She was delighted, and for a time their love seemed stronger than ever. But the past has a funny way of catching up with you, and Siagal was not one to let go of his precious ring without a fight. Siagal tracked the ring to Bernard, demanding its return. Bernard, in his stubbornness, refused, believing that the ring now rightfully belonged to Fionnuala. What followed was a series of increasingly absurd confrontations, with Siagal trying everything from polite requests to outright theft to reclaim his ring. As the tension between Bernard and Siagal grew, so did the strain on Bernard and Fionnuala's relationship. Fionnuala, ever the free spirit, began to feel trapped by the ring's growing significance. She wanted to be with Bernard, but she didn't want to be tied down by a piece of jewelry, no matter how beautiful. In a twist worthy of a Greek tragedy, Fionnuala decided to leave Bernard, unable to bear the weight of the ring and the drama it brought with it. Heartbroken, Bernard was left to pick up the pieces of his shattered love and his broken dreams. The ring, which had once been a symbol of love and commitment, had become a curse, tearing apart the very bond it was meant to strengthen. Bernard, now alone and bitter, finally decided to return the ring to Siagal, hoping to rid himself of its curse once and for all. But when Bernard went to find Siagal, he discovered that the old man had passed away, his search for the ring having consumed him until the very end. Bernard, holding the ring in his hand, realized that some things, once lost, can never truly be reclaimed. In a final act of catharsis, Bernard threw the ring into the depths of Loch Corrib, hoping that its secrets would remain hidden forever. He walked away, a wiser but sadder man, his heart still aching from the loss of Fionnuala. Much like Ullr, Bernard's story is one of practicality and survival in the face of overwhelming odds. He learned the hard way that love, like the gods, can be capricious and cruel. It demands much and often gives little in return. But Bernard also learned the value of resilience and adaptability, qualities that Ullr himself would have admired. As we reflect on Bernard's tale, we are reminded that life, with all its twists and turns, is a journey of learning and growth. Whether we are gods or mere mortals, we must navigate the complexities of love, loss, and survival with grace and humility. So, the next time you find yourself faced with a challenge, big or small, think of Ullr and Bernard, channel their spirit of resilience and adaptability, and remember that sometimes it's the practical skills and the everyday victories that make all the difference. And if you happen to find a mysterious ring, well, perhaps it's best to leave it where you found it. As the Norse say, even the simplest thread can bind the strongest shield. Ullr and Bernard embody practicality and pragmatism, proving that even the most ordinary skills and actions can yield extraordinary consequences. In a world as unpredictable as the Norse cosmos, that's a comforting thought indeed.